Okay, so this talk is on 21-day challenge. So I decided to figure out, like, where does this 21-day challenge come from? So I discovered this gentleman named Maxwell Maltz. He's a plastic surgeon from the 60s. He discovered that after doing a nose job on someone, or like an amputation on somebody, that it took a minimum of 21 days for the individual to get used to it. So then he decided to keep track of that and kind of reflect on his own behaviors and see how long it took him to get used to stuff. And he found that, yeah, minimum of 21 days seemed to be the average. He wrote in the 60s a book about this research that he had done called Psycho-Cybernetics. So this is a myth of this 21 days to form a habit, and it started because of this research that Maxwell Maltz had done in his book Psycho-Cybernetics. You know the telephone game, how you can you have a chain of people. The first person will relay a message to the second person, who will relay a message to the third person, and so on and so forth. And by the time you get to the end, you have a completely different message, and it's hilarious. So this minimum of 21 days to get used to change through this telephone game had morphed into 21 days to form a habit. Maxwell Maltz's original research was that it's a minimum of 21 days to get used to a change, and it had morphed to it takes 21 days to form a habit. So that 21 days to form a habit is a myth, but it's a great tool. Yeah, it's a great tool. Philip Lally, a health psychology researcher at University College London, published a study in the European Journal of Social Psychology. She actually wanted to see how long it takes to form a habit. So she examined 96 people over a 12-week period and discovered that it takes 66 days on average to form a habit. So now the 66-day average, the minimum it took somebody was 18 days, and the maximum that it took somebody was 254 days. You know, everyone is different. The same person is even different over time. Maxwell, this book of his not only basically invented this 21 days to form a habit, and basically launched the trend nowadays of the 21-day challenges. This book basically was the first self-help book. So he was the forerunner for the Zig Ziglars and the Tony Robbins, this Maxwell Maltz guy. So the thing about self-help, right, is this self-help theory. I looked it up, and there's 3 criteria that people need to follow in order to achieve psychological growth. The first one is autonomy. People need to feel in control of their own behaviors and goals. This sense of being able to take direct action that will result in real change plays a major part in helping people feel self-determined. Autonomy. People need to feel in control. So that's the first bullet point of self-help theory, that people need to feel in control. Well, that basically goes against the first step of AA, which is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. We were never going to be in control of our alcoholism. So the second point in self-help theory that people need to follow to achieve psychological growth is competence. People need to gain mastery of tasks and learn different skills. When people feel that they have the skills needed for success, they are more likely to take actions that will help them achieve their goals. I agree with that one. So the third bullet point is connectedness or relatedness. People need to experience a sense of belonging and attachment to other people. So it's ironic because it's a self-help theory, but yet one of the bullet points is that you need connectedness with other people. So that contradicts itself. Is it self-help or is it a support group? So I do agree with the third bullet point that you do need support, but you can't do it on your own. So their own contradiction kind of points to the oxymoron there. So yeah, we need interrelatedness. We are powerless, and we need community. Basically, when I think of community, that's basically church, right? This group, the faith-based recovery group that my wife and I lead, that's basically church. Everybody that's going to church, is basically in recovery. It's sanctification, going from where we are now to becoming more and more like Jesus and less like ourselves. And that all starts with repentance, which is to turn from sin. But more than that, not just turning from sin, but you also have to have a direction to run. You can't just run away from sin. So we run to God, right? You have to have a direction. So we want to focus on new habits. That's the point of the 21-day challenge here, which is 3 verses in John for 7 days. Oh yeah, this is the 21-day challenge plus 3, because it adds up to 24 days. So it's 3 verses in John for 7 days, then 4 verses in Acts for 7 days, and then 5 verses in Genesis for 10 days. And I looked up what's the best book to start in for for beginners that are just getting into the Bible. And the reason the Gospel of John is picked is the consensus is that the other 3 Gospels say what Jesus did, but in John it focuses on who Jesus was or is. So yeah. So we're going to focus on new habits. See, I've kind of narrowed down a couple factors, in my opinion, that are core to recovery, and their fellowship, which is, the support group, prayer, which is communication in relationship with God, and thirdly, conscious contact with God in when you're in the Word. So you're in the Word, that's hearing from God, and meditation. When you meditate on verses, you hear from God. Prayer is communication to Him. Meditation in the Word is hearing from Him. And fellowship, church, is where we actually practice the biblical principles that we learn. You'll hear people say, I've got my own relationship with God and I don't need to go to church. That's great that you have a really close relationship with God, but you have to bear fruit. And to know that you're bearing fruit, you actually have to put the principles into practice. You can't put the principles of loving your neighbor into practice if you're outside of relationship with people. And so we go to church to practice these principles. And also, one of the things we're supposed to do is be discipling to people. So, if you've been going to church for a week, you're far enough along on your journey to disciple somebody who's just walked in the door, you know. Now with recovery, I do kind of have a threshold of 1 year sobriety before you could sponsor somebody. But if you're sober for a week, you know, you can come along your peer and be an accountability partner with them. If you know, even if you've been sober for just a week, and this person is on, and the person that you want to be accountable to and partner up with, has only been sober for 24 hours. So yeah, we're going to do the 21-day challenge, which is 3 verses in John for 7 days, 4 verses in Acts for 7 days, 5 verses in Genesis for 10 days. And we're going to call it the 21-day plus 3 challenge. It's just a tool for starting this new habit. And my wife, she talks about stacking habits, which is basically like if you're going to start getting into the Bible, pick a time where it's actually going to be coming after a habit you already have. Like, for instance, you go to work Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, where at 5 o'clock you normally would have gone to happy hour, right? You instead do the 21-day challenge of going to work, which is a habit, stacking it on that habit of instead of going to happy hour, you go home or a coffee shop or wherever, and you instead are in the Word. Do that for 21 days. So we want to stack habits. Another principle that she always talks about is, right, so repentance is to run away from sin and to focus on and run towards God. So in that, we want to focus on God and not the sin, right? We don't want to, our mindset doesn't want to be, don't sin, pull up on my bootstraps and try harder and more willpower to keep from doing the sin. No, we want to focus on what we're adding in, the new habits that we're adding in. We don't want to be sin focused, we want to be grace focused. So an example that Mary gives, she's a personal trainer, is she has one client who basically doesn't eat breakfast, doesn't eat lunch, has no healthy snacks, comes home from work, and has pizza and beer. Now, this guy's not an alcoholic, so, you know, pizza and beer, no big deal, right? Except for it's not nutritious, it's not healthy. So when she first started working with this gentleman, he said, "Oh, you're going to ask me to stop drinking beer, right?" She's like, No, I'm going to instead have you eat a healthy breakfast. So he introduced oatmeal, right? So in the morning he started eating oatmeal. And then he started having a healthy snack, you know, for lunch or whatever. So instead of focusing on not having beer, because it's unhealthy, he instead focused on introducing healthy habits of a healthy breakfast and a healthy snack. So by the time evening came, you know, he had already had breakfast, already had a healthy snack, so he was less inclined to get his caloric intake from more pizza and more beer, which those introduced healthy habits are only going to grow to then he'll have a healthy lunch. He's already working out, you know, getting exercise in with Mary. So, you know, he's got momentum to switch from eating pizza and beer to potentially having a more healthy dinner. So one thing about focusing on God with this 21-day challenge and being in the Word more is, like I say, being grace focused. We're chasing after God. If we're in the Word more, we're working on a relationship with God. He transforms us from the inside out, right? And then help with the support group, the group that we're involved with. Um, you know, they hold us accountable. God transforms us from the inside out. Um, so one irony I think of with the self-help aspect of things is, imagine a self-help book for helping somebody be more motivated. The self-help motivational book. Takes you 3 months. It takes that individual 3 months to buy the book, right? Because they struggle with motivation. So then after they buy the book, it takes them another 3 months to actually read the book. Or maybe they won't even finish it. They'll like read a couple pages and be done. You know, they struggle with motivation. How long is it going to take somebody who struggles with motivation to read a motivational self-help book? It's just kind of illustrates one of the faults of self-help books. But like I said, focusing on God transforms us from the inside out through grace, and the support group helps us be accountable, and we were able to practice our biblical principles in that group and do church and become more and more like Jesus and less like ourselves. And that's the whole entire point of all of this. So yeah,